The dog started running away the moment he saw his owner. The soldier was heartbroken. "He doesn't recognize me anymore," he said. But the reason the dog was running wasn't what he thought at all. Today I'm going to tell you a story that will change everything you think you know about loyalty, memory, and the incredible bond between a man and his best friend. This isn't just about a soldier coming home from war. This is about something far deeper, something that will make you question everything you believe about how animals truly understand us. Sergeant Mike Thompson had been deployed in Afghanistan for 3 long years. 3 years of sand, bullets, and sleepless nights. 3 years of wondering if he'd ever make it home alive. But through it all, there was one thing that kept him going. One face that appeared in his dreams every single night. His golden retriever, Max. Max wasn't just a pet. He was Mike's everything. Before the deployment, they were inseparable. Every morning, they'd go for a run through the neighborhood. Every evening, Max would be waiting by the door when Mike came home from base training. Every night, Max would sleep right next to Mike's bed, one paw always touching his owner's hand. Mike had rescued Max as a puppy from a shelter 5 years ago. The little golden ball of fur had been abandoned, scared, and alone. Mike saw something in those brown eyes. A recognition. A understanding. From that first day, they were bonded in a way that went beyond words. During those 3 years of deployment, Mike carried Max's photo everywhere. In his helmet, in his pocket, taped to his bunk. His fellow soldiers used to joke about it. "Thompson's more in love with that dog than most guys are with their wives," they'd say. And maybe they were right. Mike would write letters home, and every single one mentioned Max. "Is he eating well? Is he still sleeping in my room? Does he still fetch that old tennis ball? Tell him I'm coming home soon." His mother would write back with updates. "Max is fine, sweetheart. He's waiting for you. He sits by the window every day, watching for your car." But war changes people. Mike knew this. He'd seen it happen to other soldiers. The constant alertness. The jumping at sudden sounds. The way your body never quite relaxes, even when you're supposed to be safe. Mike could feel it happening to himself too. The nightmares. The hypervigilance. The way his hands would shake sometimes when he thought nobody was looking. "I just need to get home to Max," he'd tell himself during the worst moments. "Max will make everything normal again. Max will remember who I used to be." Finally, after 3 years, Mike's deployment ended. The flight home felt like the longest journey of his life. Every minute stretched into an hour. Every hour felt like a day. He could barely sit still. His leg bounced constantly. His hands fidgeted with Max's photo. "Soon, boy," he whispered to the picture. "Soon we'll be together again." Mike's mother picked him up from the airport. The ride home was filled with small talk, but Mike's mind was elsewhere. He was thinking about Max. About that moment when he'd walk through the front door and see those familiar brown eyes light up with recognition and joy. "He's been waiting for you," his mother said softly, glancing at Mike in the rearview mirror. "Every single day, he goes to your room and lies on your bed. It's like he knows you're coming back." Mike's heart swelled. This was what he'd been dreaming about for 3 years. This moment. This reunion. They pulled into the driveway of his childhood home. Mike could see the living room window, and for a split second, he thought he saw a golden shape move past it. His pulse quickened. This was it. This was the moment he'd been living for. Mike grabbed his duffel bag and practically ran to the front door. His mother was still getting out of the car, but he couldn't wait. He needed to see Max. Now. He turned the key and pushed open the door. "Max," he called out. "Max, I'm home." For a moment, there was silence. Then he heard the familiar sound of paws on hardwood floors. His heart was pounding with excitement and anticipation. 3 years. 3 long years, and finally. Max appeared around the corner from the kitchen. For a split second, their eyes met. Mike smiled the biggest smile he'd had in years. "Max. Come here, boy." But something was wrong. Max stopped dead in his tracks. His tail, which should have been wagging frantically, was perfectly still. His ears, which should have been perked up with excitement, were flat against his head. And his eyes, those beautiful brown eyes that used to look at Mike with such love and adoration, they looked afraid. "Max?" Mike said softly, his smile fading. "It's me, boy. It's Mike. I'm home." Max took a step backward. Then another. His body language was unmistakable. He wasn't just confused. He wasn't just surprised. He was scared. Of Mike. Of his own owner. "Max, what's wrong?" Mike dropped to his knees, making himself smaller, less threatening. "Come here, buddy. Don't you remember me?" But Max turned and ran. Actually ran away from him. Down the hallway, up the stairs, and Mike could hear the sound of a door slamming. Max had retreated to Mike's old bedroom. Mike sat there on the floor, stunned. This wasn't how it was supposed to happen. This wasn't the reunion he'd dreamed about for 3 years. This wasn't the homecoming that had kept him sane through the darkest moments of his deployment. His mother walked in just as Mike was getting up from the floor. She saw the look on his face and immediately understood what had happened. "Oh, honey," she said softly. "He doesn't remember me," Mike said, his voice barely above a whisper. 3 years was too long. "He's forgotten who I am." But Mike's mother shook her head. "That's not it, sweetheart. Max remembers you perfectly. That's not the problem." "Then what?" Mike asked, confusion and hurt clear in his voice. His mother looked at him carefully, studying his face, his posture, the way he held himself. "Mike, look in the mirror," she said gently. Mike walked to the hallway mirror and looked at his reflection. What he saw shocked him. The man looking back wasn't the same person who'd left 3 years ago. This man looked harder. Older. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. His jaw was constantly clenched. His shoulders were always tense, as if he was ready for an attack at any moment. Even his voice had changed, becoming deeper, more commanding. More military. "You're not the same person who left," his mother explained. And Max can sense that. Dogs are incredibly sensitive to energy, to body language, to the way people carry themselves. To Max, you might look like Mike, you might sound like Mike, but you don't feel like the Mike he remembers. Mike stared at his reflection. Was that really it? Had he changed so much that his own dog was afraid of him? Over the next few days, Mike tried everything. He spoke softly to Max. He offered him treats. He sat on the floor for hours, just waiting for Max to approach. But nothing worked. Max would watch him from a distance, but he never came close. It was as if there was an invisible wall between them. Mike began to spiral into depression. The one thing that was supposed to make everything better, the one relationship that was supposed to be unconditional, was broken. If his own dog didn't trust him anymore, how could he trust himself? He started having more nightmares. More flashbacks. The sound of Max's claws on the hardwood floor reminded him of gunfire. The way Max watched him from doorways reminded him of enemy surveillance. Everything felt hostile, even in his own home. "Maybe I should just accept it," Mike told his mother one evening. "Maybe some things can't be fixed. Maybe I've changed too much." But his mother wasn't ready to give up. "There's someone I want you to meet," she said. "Dr. Sarah Martinez. She's a veterinarian, but she also works with therapy animals and traumatized pets. She might be able to help." Dr. Martinez came to the house the next day. She was a small woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a gentle manner. She watched Mike and Max interact for about an hour, taking notes and asking questions. "Tell me about Max before you left," she said to Mike. "He was perfect," Mike replied. "Happy, playful, loyal. He was my shadow. Wherever I went, he went. We had this routine, this rhythm. We understood each other completely." Dr. Martinez nodded. "And tell me about yourself before you left." Mike thought about it. "I was different, I guess. More relaxed. I laughed more. I was, I don't know, softer. Less alert all the time." "Mike," Dr. Martinez said gently, "Max isn't rejecting you because he doesn't remember you. He's rejecting you because he does remember you. He remembers the old Mike, and he's confused about why this new person looks like his owner but doesn't act like him." She paused, letting that sink in. Dogs form their bonds based on the complete person, not just appearance, but energy, behavior, emotional state, even scent. When you left, you were one person. When you came back, you were someone else entirely. To Max, it's like a stranger is wearing his owner's face. Mike felt like he'd been punched in the stomach. "So what do I do? How do I become the person I used to be?" "You can't," Dr. Martinez said simply. "And you shouldn't try. War changes people, Mike. That's not something to be ashamed of. But what you can do is help Max understand that this new version of you is still you, just evolved." She looked at Max, who was watching them from the top of the stairs. "The bond is still there. It's just buried under layers of confusion and fear. We need to help Max see that the core of who you are, the person who rescued him, who loved him, who cared for him, that person is still there." Dr. Martinez suggested a plan. It wasn't quick, and it wasn't easy. It involved Mike essentially reintroducing himself to Max, starting from scratch but building on their existing foundation. "Start with the basics," she said. "Sit in the same room as Max, but don't try to interact. Just be present. Let him get used to your new energy without pressure." "For how long?" Mike asked. "As long as it takes," she replied. "Could be days, could be weeks. Max will let you know when he's ready for the next step." So that's what Mike did. Every morning, he would sit in the living room with a cup of coffee and just exist. He didn't call to Max, didn't try to coax him over, didn't even look directly at him. He just sat there, reading or watching TV, being present. At first, Max stayed upstairs. But after 3 days, Mike noticed Max at the top of the staircase, watching. After a week, Max had moved to the bottom of the stairs. After 2 weeks, Max was sitting in the doorway of the living room. It was slow progress, but it was progress. Dr. Martinez visited again after 2 weeks. "Good," she said, observing Max's position. "He's curious now instead of afraid. That's a huge step." "How can you tell?" Mike asked. "Look at his body language," she explained. "His ears are forward instead of back. His tail isn't tucked. He's watching you with interest, not fear. He's trying to figure you out." The next phase involved Mike doing things that would remind Max of their old relationship, but in a non-threatening way. Dr. Martinez suggested that Mike start with Max's favorite activities, but modified for their current situation. "Remember that tennis ball Max used to love?" she asked. Mike nodded. "Start throwing it in the backyard. Don't invite Max to play, just throw it around by yourself. Let him watch from inside." It felt silly at first. Mike standing in the backyard, throwing a tennis ball to himself while his dog watched from the window. But after a few days, Mike noticed Max's tail wagging slightly when the ball bounced. It was the first time he'd seen Max's tail wag since he'd been home. After a week of this, something amazing happened. Mike was outside throwing the ball when he heard the dog door open. Max came outside, but stayed near the house. Mike continued throwing the ball, pretending not to notice Max. Then, something incredible happened. The ball bounced near Max, and without thinking, Max picked it up. For a moment, he just stood there with the ball in his mouth, as if surprised by his own action. Mike's heart was racing, but he forced himself to stay calm. He sat down on the ground and waited. Slowly, cautiously, Max approached. Not all the way, but closer than he'd been in weeks. He dropped the ball about 10 feet away from Mike and backed up. Mike picked up the ball and threw it gently, not too far. Max watched it bounce, and Mike could see the internal struggle in the dog's eyes. The old Max would have chased it immediately. The confused Max wasn't sure what to do. But slowly, Max walked over and picked up the ball again. This time, he came a little closer before dropping it. They continued this modified game of fetch for about 20 minutes. It wasn't the same as their old games, there was still distance, still caution, but it was connection. That night, for the first time since Mike had been home, Max slept on the floor of Mike's bedroom. Not on the bed like he used to, but in the same room. It was progress. Dr. Martinez was thrilled when Mike called to tell her. "The trust is rebuilding," she said. "Max is starting to understand that you're still you, just different." "But will we ever have what we had before?" Mike asked. "You'll have something different," she said. "Maybe even something better. Because now it's not just based on the carefree relationship you had before. Now it's based on both of you overcoming something difficult together." Over the following weeks, the progress continued. Max started sleeping closer to Mike's bed. He began eating treats from Mike's hand. He even started wagging his tail when Mike came home. But the real breakthrough came 6 weeks after Mike had returned home. Mike was having one of his bad nights. A nightmare had woken him up at 3 a.m., and he was sitting on the edge of his bed, shaking, trying to ground himself in reality. The familiar weight of anxiety was crushing his chest, making it hard to breathe. He was so focused on trying to calm himself down that he didn't notice Max get up from his spot on the floor. He didn't notice Max approach the bed. He only realized Max was there when he felt a warm, familiar weight lean against his leg. Mike looked down, and there was Max, pressed against him, looking up with those brown eyes that were no longer afraid. They were concerned. Caring. Full of the love that Mike had missed so desperately. "Max," Mike whispered, afraid to move and break the spell. But Max didn't move away. Instead, he did something he hadn't done since Mike had been home. He climbed up onto the bed and lay down next to Mike, placing his head on Mike's lap. Mike started crying then. Not the frustrated tears he'd shed when Max had first rejected him, but tears of relief, of gratitude, of understanding. "You get it, don't you, boy?" Mike said softly, stroking Max's fur. "You understand that I'm different now. But you're okay with it." Max looked up at him and, for the first time in 6 weeks, licked Mike's hand. Dr. Martinez later explained what had happened. "Max finally understood that your changes weren't something to be afraid of," she said. "When he saw you struggling that night, he realized that you needed him. And that's when his protective instincts kicked in. He remembered that his job isn't just to be your companion when you're happy, it's to be there for you when you're not." From that night forward, things were different between Mike and Max. Not the same as before, they could never go back to that innocent, carefree relationship. But in some ways, their bond was deeper now. Max seemed to understand Mike's struggles in a way that nobody else could. On nights when Mike had nightmares, Max was there. When loud noises made Mike jump, Max would calmly place himself between Mike and the sound. When Mike was having a particularly difficult day, Max would stay close, not demanding attention but simply providing presence. "He's become a therapy dog without any training," Dr. Martinez observed during one of her follow-up visits. "He's learned to read your specific needs and respond to them." Mike realized that Max's initial rejection hadn't been about not recognizing him or not loving him anymore. It had been about Max sensing that his owner was hurt and not knowing how to help. The distance had been Max's way of trying to figure out what this new version of his owner needed. 6 months after his return, Mike and Max had established their new normal. They still went for runs, but now they were therapeutic runs, helping Mike work through his anxiety. They still played fetch, but now it was a mindfulness exercise that helped Mike stay present. They still slept in the same room, but now Max served as an early warning system for nightmares. Mike started volunteering at the local VA hospital, sharing his story with other returning veterans who were struggling with similar issues. Max often came with him, demonstrating how animals could adapt to and support their owners through difficult transitions. People think that when we come back from war, everything should just go back to normal, Mike would tell the groups. But normal doesn't exist anymore. Max taught me that instead of trying to go back to who I was, I needed to accept who I've become and build from there. One veteran asked, "But weren't you angry that Max rejected you at first?" Mike thought about it. "I was hurt," he said. "But I understand now that Max wasn't rejecting me. He was protecting both of us. He knew that if we tried to pretend everything was the same when it wasn't, we'd both end up disappointed and frustrated. By making me work to rebuild our relationship, he made sure it was based on who we both are now, not who we used to be." The story of Mike and Max spread throughout the veteran community and beyond. It became a powerful example of how relationships can not only survive trauma but actually become stronger because of it. Dr. Martinez often used their case in her lectures about animal psychology and trauma recovery. What Max did was remarkable, she would explain to her audiences. He essentially forced his owner to confront the changes in himself and accept them. Only when Mike stopped trying to be his old self and started embracing his new self could they rebuild their bond. Today, Mike and Max are inseparable again, but in a different way than before. Their relationship is built on understanding, acceptance, and mutual support rather than just simple companionship. Mike still has difficult days. He probably always will. But now he has a partner who understands those difficulties and knows how to help him through them. And Max? Max has become something more than just a pet. He's become a healer, a therapist, a guardian angel with 4 paws and a tail that wags not just with happiness, but with purpose. The dog who once ran away from his owner now refuses to leave his side. But it took both of them changing, growing, and accepting their new reality to get there. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about 2 beings who never face challenges. Sometimes they're about 2 beings who face the biggest challenge of their lives and choose to face it together, even when it would be easier to walk away. Mike and Max chose to stay. They chose to rebuild. They chose to love each other not despite their changes, but because of them. And that choice made all the difference. The lesson here isn't just about dogs and their owners. It's about all relationships. When life changes us, and it will change us, we have a choice. We can mourn who we used to be and try desperately to go back, or we can embrace who we've become and build something new and potentially even stronger. Max taught Mike that love isn't about staying the same. Love is about growing together, adapting together, and choosing each other again and again, even when everything else changes. That's a lesson worth learning from a dog who was brave enough to run away so that, eventually, he could come back home. Thank you for watching this incredible story of loyalty, adaptation, and the unbreakable bond between a soldier and his best friend. If this touched your heart like it touched mine, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more amazing animal stories that remind us what really matters in life. And remember, sometimes the greatest act of love is giving someone the space to become who they need to be, and then choosing to love that new person just as much as you loved the old one.